Rich, Salford this week, a tough test in one of the informed teams in Super League?
Absolutely, the informed team. I think a real testament to it is they are a team. There's a lot of obviously a lot of headlines, and deservedly so, around Jackson Hastings. Probably the best halfback, if very arguably the best player in the competition at this moment in time, and probably through the course of the season. He receives a lot of their accolades, and quite rightly so. He's an amazing player, but I think they're a really good team who all know the roles, do the jobs, and they're doing it very effectively well at the moment, which is why they got six wins on the bounce.
And presumably, Tui Lolohea coming up against his former club, but players against their former teams normally step up a level. Are you expecting a big game from him?
Yeah, I think with Tui, I think I go on record as saying, we rate Tui. We really rate him, and sometimes when you let a player go from your organisation, you do so thinking, he's a player that could well come back and bite us on the bum at some stage. I think at the time we probably weren't as equipped as Salford are for Tui's skills, if that makes sense. And by that I mean, he's gone to a very solid, stable team that are performing really well, and he were in a team here that were pretty inconsistent. He changed positions a number of times, became in and out of the team. But we all think, and I personally think, Tui's got some tremendous attributes as a rugby league player, and playing in a really strong, solid team. The sort of bits of magic that he can put on the top of that, that's his forte. Very difficult playing in our team at the time, and we probably didn't see the best of him on consistent enough performances. But I think that was probably more down to us than down to him. But I'd also say, when we look back at some of our vision this year, you see some of the skills that he possesses. He's a really sublimely talented player.
And how good of a job do you think Ian Watson's done at Salford in recent years?
Tremendous. Obviously, they've had battles around the ownership, and they're probably not a team what has the resources what some clubs have, but they've bought players that fit their DNA, if you like, and moulded them into what they need to. And Chris Wellham's a great example. Let go by OKR, picked up by Salford, and the performances that Chris is putting in at the moment. The skills around his game, the competitive nature of him. He's a shining example of what what Ian's been able to do for some of those guys. And as I say, the biggest compliment you can pay him is that they're a team, and they're a very, very well organised, solid team, and he's getting an awful lot out of his players at the moment. So it's a real job well done.
Having secured Super League status last week with that win at London, what's the motivation for your side for Friday night?
Well, again, it can go one of two ways. This can't it? We can stick the queue in the rack, or we can get out there and finish our season in a very strong, positive manner, which is something that we've talked about. The pressure of relegation is off. I know mathematically there'd have to be some fairly freaky scorelines for us to get dragged back into it. I'm pretty confident to sit here and say that's not going to happen. And we talked all year about getting to a point where we can really go out and enjoy ourselves and express ourselves. I guess during the game at periods last week, there were felt a little bit of pressure. I felt we played within ourselves and didn't pass the ball enough. But I understand that too, given the circumstances and the guys not wanting to make too many mistakes. But we can get out there and have a right good crack with the football. And I think some of our talk internally has been that we've come up against some of these top four sides and competed really well, and probably put ourselves in a position to win a couple of those games, and lost late on. And we're playing the form team, we're in the top four, aiming for the playoffs, and then next week we play Warrington, who are second. We want to get some of those wins over the line and prove that we've travelled forward. It's a short turnaround, so our practice has been a little bit less this week. At the same time, we're probably going to inject a couple of fresh bodies into the squad. We've had some late injury calls right up until team run, so it'd be good to get at least a couple of pairs of fresh legs in and amongst the forwards.
One of those changes, announced Brett Ferris has been ruled out with a knee injury. Stevie Ward comes into the 19-man squad. Does he have a chance to be involved on Friday night?
Yeah, Stevie will play. I'm happy to say that. I thought Brett had a terrific game, one of his best games of the season last week for us. He's shown some great experience at times when we've needed it this year. The pitch is a very unforgiving pitch down in London, and that caused us to get a little bit sore and a little bit banged up. Look, Brett could have played this week at a push, but we've just decided, Sutty's had a fair bit of time on the bench, so he's low on minutes. Stevie Ward is back. We could have picked him last week, but again, we just didn't think it was the right time or right game to put him back in the squad, but he's looked great in training for 2 or 3 weeks now, so Stevie will take his place somewhere in the 17, and we'll utilise that early finish for Brett and probably get him some post-season surgery as soon as we can next week, so that'll probably rule him out for the rest of the season. But being able to do that, it'll be getting him a head start on his rehabilitation and recovery. For Stevie, great opportunity. He's been named in the Great Britain squad, which is a real show of faith in his ability, considering he's not played much football this year. But he's looked good. He's looked good in training. He's moving really well. He's really confident in his knee. So it'd be good to get him back out there for these last couple of games.
For him going forwards, how important is it to get a couple of games under his belt before the end of the season, so that going into next year he knows he's ready to go?
Yeah, it'll give him a good head start, and I guess whet his appetite again, and for getting stuck into pre-season. But importantly, and I think the most important factor about that is we want him to get through these games really solid and give him some confidence in his body. He's had some difficult injuries, which is a test not only of his body but also, mentally. Rehab can be a very tough and lonely place sometimes. So to get a couple of back-to-back ones, building his confidence up in his body, but also the top 2 inch in between his ears is very important for Stevie. He's a guy that's a very deep thinker, thinks about the game a lot, looks after himself really well. We're looking forward to him getting out there, but also getting through these two games and putting himself in a position to get a really strong start for next year. 2
home games to finish the season against 2 sides in the playoff positions. Is this a chance to especially for the Leeds fans? It's been a tough year for them to go out there and produce some performances they can be proud of.
Yeah, look, last week again, I think we set a ground record for crowd. That can be a difficult ground to go. It's a different sort of a game, different sort of a stadium, but we created a great atmosphere, didn't we? To dominate one end and all the side, and again the fans got behind the team, and as you've rightly pointed out, it can be challenging, it can be tough. We understand that. Fans are very passionate and give a lot of the time and the hard-earned money up, and a group of fans that have been used to a lot of success, to have to go through a couple of years where it's been very, very difficult, but they've stuck behind us, and I've said this on more than one occasion. There's been times where they've absolutely helped get us over the line in games, and I can't tell you the difference it makes to a player to go out and not feel that weight of I guess anticipation of things not going right, and the moans and the groans, which we understand that comes from time to time, but that can really weigh heavy and I guess intimidate players sometimes. I think our fans, they know the rugby, but they also know effort. And I think they've recognised that at times this year, perhaps we've not got some results, but the effort has been absolutely there for long periods. So they've stuck by us, been wonderful. I've always said this, that the boys really, as you can see post game, the boys really, respect, and I guess there's a mutual love between the players and the fans.
And just looking back on the season, the new players that came in mid-season, when you reflect where we've got to now, how big an impact to those guys, sort of Rob Louis, Reece Martin, Arthur? He had a big game last week as well. Yeah,
throw Lunty into that too. Half a season, I can only talk about half a season, unfortunately. From my own personal standpoint, I think Rob Louis and Reece Martin have been, really key signings in helping us, achieve what we wanted to achieve, and that's getting off the bottom of the league and making sure our status is confirmed. Arthur, we know he's a lovely guy, fitted in really well. You know what you're going to get every week from Arthur. He's a very solid, consistent performer, best forward on the field for us at London last week. And I think Lunty's impact, while it's not always been measured in game time, if you like, he's been limited to some 20, 25, 30 minute periods in the games, and interchanging two hookers can be difficult at times on your rotation, but the impact that Sean's had around the place with his experience, he's a very effervescent character by nature, very experienced guy, happy to pass his experience on, understands game plans and principles. I won't underestimate the impact that he's had. We're very sorry to lose Matty, who we think, a terrific player and a good guy. And the same with Tui, really, a player that possesses a lot of talent. But Rob definitely given us, I think, what we were screaming out for. That extra control in the half-back positions. Reese's goal kicking's been phenomenal for us. We talked about Lundy's experience and Ava. We just know what we're getting. So undoubtedly those guys have had a massive contribution on the field, but certainly off it too.